Who were the first people to go to the moon? A lot of people think they know the answer. Oh, Neil Armstrong. But what actually happened on that historic trip? Who else was there? What did they do once they landed? And what happened when they came back? Today, we're taking a trip back to 1969, the year humanity left Earth, and actually set foot on another world. Before we get to who went to the moon, let's talk about why they went. Back in the 1960s, the United States and the Soviet Union were in what's known as the space race. It was like a Cold War competition, but instead of armies, it was all about rockets, satellites, and getting to space first. In 1961, the Soviets launched Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space. That was a big deal. So US President John F. Kennedy said, "Okay, we need to step it up," and he gave this famous speech. "We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they're easy, but because they're hard." NASA got to work. And just 8 years later, boom, rocket Apollo 11. On July 16, 1969, Apollo 11 launched from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. 3 astronauts were on board. Neil Armstrong, the mission commander, former test pilot, very calm under pressure. Buzz Aldrin, the lunar module pilot, a space nerd and proud of it. Michael Collins, the command module pilot, the guy who didn't walk on the moon but played a crucial role. Fun fact: Michael Collins was orbiting the moon alone while the other 2 explored. He later said he never felt lonely, but still, 500,000 miles from home, completely solo. That's hardcore. 4 days later, on July 20, 1969, they reached the moon. Armstrong and Aldrin climbed into the lunar module, called Eagle, and began descending. At one point, they were running dangerously low on fuel, only about 20 seconds left, and there were boulders everywhere. But Armstrong manually piloted the lander to a flat spot. At 4:17 p.m. Eastern Time, they touched down. "Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed." Everyone at Mission Control in Houston basically exploded with excitement. About 6 hours after landing, Armstrong opened the hatch and made his way down the ladder. At 10:56 p.m. Eastern, he took the first step. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. He meant to say, for a man, but forgot the A. Doesn't matter, still iconic. A few minutes later, Buzz Aldrin followed, calling the moon's surface magnificent desolation. They spent about 2.5 hours walking around, collecting samples, taking photos, and setting up experiments. They also planted a US flag, but contrary to what you might think, it wasn't waving from the wind, because there's no wind. NASA used a metal rod to make it look like it was fluttering. Here's what they actually did while on the moon: collected 47.5 pounds, 21.5 kilograms, of moon rocks and soil, set up a seismometer to measure moonquakes, left a retroreflector, which scientists can still use today to bounce lasers off the moon, took lots of photos, for science and PR, and yes, they left behind some trash, including food wrappers and human waste. They even left a plaque that said, "Here men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. We came in peace for all mankind." Now let's talk about the third astronaut, Michael Collins. While Armstrong and Aldrin were exploring, Collins stayed in the command module, orbiting the moon. He lost radio contact with Earth every time he passed behind the moon, so he was truly alone. If something went wrong, and the Eagle couldn't lift off again, Collins would have had to return to Earth alone, knowing the other 2 were stranded. Thankfully, that never happened. But the pressure he was under. Unreal. After about 21 hours on the moon, Armstrong and Aldrin blasted off in the top half of the lunar module and rejoined Collins in orbit. The crew returned to Earth on July 24, 1969, splashing down in the Pacific Ocean. They were picked up by the USS Hornet, a US Navy aircraft carrier. And get this, they had to spend 21 days in quarantine, just in case they brought back moon germs. Spoiler, no moon germs. The Apollo 11 mission was a giant moment for science, exploration, and humanity. It proved we could go to the moon and return safely. It inspired generations of scientists, engineers, and dreamers. And it reminded the world that, when we work together, we're capable of incredible things. Only 12 people have ever walked on the moon, all of them from NASA, and all between 1969 and 1972. But it started with 3 brave men, and 1 small step. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Michael Collins. They changed history, and left footprints that are still there today. Want to go deeper into space history? Like, comment, and subscribe.